Call the meeting to order.
Turn all that off, or I'll be going off for the next hour and a half.
Thank you. And this is the Brevard County Local Coordinating Board for the Transportation Disadvantaged, May 13th, 2024 at 10:30 a.m. Space Coast Room, Building C, second floor, Vieira Government Center. Judge Fran Jameson Way, Vieira. Anyone wishing to make a comment on an item not on the agenda should complete a speaker card at the sign-in desk over there, sign-in desk. For items on the agenda, please fill out a speaker card and you'll be called upon when the item is discussed, and comments are limited to 3 minutes. We'll start with introductions in the back corner, if you could, please. Actually, we'll go to the far left and we'll go this way. So, Yvonne, would you go first, please? Thank you.
Brian Johnson, Brevard County ADA Coordinator.
Madam?
Lori Hamilton, volunteers in motion. Brandy Kazar, vocational rehabilitation.
Thank you. Margaret? Or actually, I can't see beyond the podium, so don't let me overlook anyone.
And I'm short. Denise Biondi, Career Source Career Card.
Thank you.
Ron Shepard, Space Coast Area Transit.
Thank you.
Jackie Bernova, Space Coast Area Transit.
Lance Parker, Space Coast Area Transit.
Carmen Dice, Space Coast Area Transit.
Margaret Campbell Renzel, and I'm a rider on Space Coast.
Ken Harley, Space Coast Area Transit.
Fulton, Agency for Health Administration.
Thank you.
Cardi Morel, Agency for Healthcare Administration.
Thank you.
Randy, alternate for persons over 60.
Diane Dixon, Agency for Life Transformations, Citizen Advocate, alternate.
Jennifer Cleveland, advocate, what am I?
Citizen Advocate, user of this.
Sorry, yes.
Thank you.
I can't see it.
Good morning, everyone. Terry Jordan, Director of Space Coast Area Transit.
Morning, Terry.
Alicia Justin, Rider for Space Coast Area.
Thank you. James?
Jane Stringer, the member of the board. Sorry.
Debbie Flynn, Space Coast TPO. Heather Balser, Brevard County Attorney's Office.
Carlos Colon, District 5 FDOT.
Jennifer Sharefs, Vocational Rehabilitation.
Camille Tate, National Federation of the Blind of Florida Disabled Representative.
Good morning. Andrea Young, Chair, City of West Melbourne.
Good morning, Christopher Gonslow. I'm with Brevard Family Partnership, who recently had a name change to Family Partnerships of Central Florida.
Mary Moore, Citizen Advocate. I'm with HFH Supportive Housing.
Anna Mae Smith, representing persons over 60.
Dennis Van Orsdal, Brevard County Veterans Services.
All right, thank you. Thank you, everyone. All right, our first item of business is going to be approval of the consent agenda. Can I have a motion and a second, please, for the consent agenda? Motion, James. Second?
I'll second.
Second, Camille. Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Thank you
Nay.
very much. Motion carries. Consent agenda passes. Reports. Next, Terry.
Good morning again, everyone. Once again, Terry Jordan of Space Coast Area Transit. Here to report on items of importance and major significance for Space Coast Area Transit services. Fixed route ridership through the most current year-to-date data is just under 9,000 and continues in an upward trend with a 3.8% overall increase over the previous year-to-date riders. So, as mentioned before, we continue to rebound to pre-COVID numbers. We're still not quite there yet, but we continue that upward trend. Demand response ridership is also seeing a significant increase with 7,000 monthly riders for the last 3 months of the quarter, which is representing a 15% increase over the previous quarter's average ridership. So we're seeing our demand and response ridership also continue to rebound and increase. Items of significance, Space Coast Area Transit submitted a low and no and bus facilities application to FTA for 5 paratransit electric vehicles, fully electric vehicles this time, and 7 Gillig electric buses, and along with the required infrastructure to install these to operate the service. Once again, this is a FTA application, so we're competing against systems throughout the entire country, large and small. So we are hopeful to win, but we know it's going to be a significant feat to do so. And the costs of these for the application of the grant is above $13 million. So once again, we're hopeful to see an award, but we're really, like I said, in a competition for a lot of others. We continue to work with Mr. Colon and his other FDOT counterparts for 5310 vehicle grants. With the most recent, we'll be looking to replace up to 8 2011 and through 2013 paratransit vehicles with all above 230,000 miles, some almost 315,000 miles on these vehicles. So we're in dire need of replacement, so we're thankful for our partnership with FDOT, and those vehicles could potentially be replaced as early as late 24 into early 2025. We're meeting with a vendor this week in regards to the paratransit software. You guys have heard me talk about this, and I apologize to those behind me. You guys have heard me talk about this in past, about the implementation of software that will help our paratransit riders be able to book their trips, make their reservations, cancel their reservations, and also one of the major impacts will be the call ahead to the paratransit rider to know that the vehicle is on its way. We're having a meeting this week for the finalization of this process potentially, and then start our implementation schedule hopefully by fall. So we're rounding the corner, Ms. Cleveland, and hopefully we'll see that implemented, and you'll be the first one to demonstrate and test it out for us. How about that?
Thank you.
You're welcome. So that is something of major significance that we are very much looking forward to in transit services. And lastly, Space Coast Air Transit staff is traveling to Orlando tomorrow to see a presentation by FDOT staff for grant leveraging and their sharing of information of available grant funds and opportunities available to us. This actually completes my report. We didn't have a whole lot of actual significant specific things, but I wanted to share those items with you. If there are any questions, glad to answer those now or later in the meeting if needed.
Thank you. I do have a question. Does anyone else have a question? So you have completely spec'd these vehicles out. So once you get that grant money, because I'm sure you're going to get it.
Thank you.
I'm an optimist. You're all set to go. They're spec'd out, or is it just this is the bus and this is the equipment you have and this is it?
So if I can defer this answer to Lance Parker, who is an individual who does the vehicle ordering, he could probably answer it much better than I can.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, by all means.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So for a low or no emission grant, one of the things that the federal government really looks at is they don't want a totally customized vehicle. They want the vehicle to stay as standardized as possible, so that way it's closer to the OEM, the manufacturer specification. So that was one of the big key parts of the grant with the vehicles we chose, which we chose for the paratransit side. We chose the Ford E-Transit. So that way it comes from Ford. It was built as an electric vehicle. It has a Ford warranty. You can take it to Ford dealerships, just like buying a Mustang Mach-E or the Ford Lightning electric truck. It's the same thing, and that's what FTA is really looking for there. And then our 7 transit buses will be Gillig USA battery electric transit vehicles, which is built from the ground up as an electric vehicle. The other alternatives right now that the FTA doesn't like is when they take a regular paratransit vehicle, they take the gasoline or diesel-powered engine and transmission out, and they totally rebuild the whole thing, and now it's a totally customized vehicle. If that makes sense, you could understand it. EVs, even today, still have their problems, so if you build one that's totally custom, Who's going to do the warranty work? Who's how much downtime are you going to have? How many road calls and service calls are you going to have? How many trips are you going to miss because these vehicles aren't running? So that's the whole idea behind not doing anything customized.
So the traditional buses, you normally do the maintenance on them in-house?
Correct.
Okay, so as those are phased out, or maybe you'll have, so the new buses coming, you won't be doing that. You won't be doing all that. Those oil changes and things don't exist anymore.
Exactly. On the battery electric buses, you're going to be going to, your wear items are tires, brakes, suspension parts, because an electric vehicle is considerably heavier than a regular vehicle. You take a Ford Mustang Mach-E, it weighs like 7,000 pounds to where a regular Mustang weighs like 3,800 pounds. It's because all the batteries and the way they have to build the vehicle for side impacts, rear impacts, because you don't want the batteries to get ruptured and explode, right? So transit vehicles are the same, if not a little bit more difficult. So yeah, the OEMs will be responsible for the warranty work on anything electric. So the Ford has a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty on it, and so does the Gillig bus. So we have, as long as the useful life of the vehicle, a lot of the warranty is covered, the majority of that useful service life.
Great. All right. Well, I know you're going to get that grant, and we're going to have those nice, pretty buses. Thank you very much,
excited.
Lance.
Any other questions?
Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just wondering, what is the mileage range on these electric vehicles? Like, is it similar to a regular car that a person, passenger car? Or, like, how does that impact how long they run on a charge? How many miles?
So the miles for the E-Transit vans, about 150 miles on a service charge. So what we'll have to do, what we've done for the grant and what we will do if we get awarded, put them in the service, we have to put them on those lower mileage routes to where they can still go out and run all day, but it wouldn't go on a route like that services Titusville and Mims. Those buses average about 180, 190 miles a day, just because they start in Cocoa and they run all over Titusville and Mims and then come back to Cocoa. So what we would do with those 5 vehicles is keep them in the Cocoa, Rockledge, Viera, Melbourne area, which is a more dense population with a lot shorter trips and less mileage, right? The transit buses, the large transit buses, the manufacturer says they get 280 miles out of a service charge, which, we're planning on about 190, 200 miles. And we have several routes that'll be good for that. One route mainly is going to be the Route 21s in downtown Melbourne that services downtown Melbourne. We think that'll be a really good thing for the seniors. It's a lot quieter. Downtown Melbourne, you guys have been down there lately. It's really, really getting congested, and they have a lot of events, a lot of stuff going on. So we're looking at impacting areas like that with the electric vehicles. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry. I
have
did
a
not see you
question.
over there in the May.
I'd like, the question is customization is what you're not customizing. What do you mean by customizing? What sort of customizing would you be doing or not doing?
So basically what the FTA looks at is anytime a vehicle is customized to the point to where the manufacturer will no longer warranty it, to that extent, so it's going to vary with different manufacturers what they consider customization to the point to where they won't cover the warranty, right? Or offer even an extended warranty. That means that you've changed the vehicle in such a way that their engineers did not design it to be that way, and they know it's a losing bet to honor the warranty on that, and they're going to get stuck with that.
But what I'm asking for is basically what customization would you intend to do, or would you ordinarily do that you're not going to do?
Yeah, nothing really.
Okay.
It's going to be the same ADA compliant bus that's wheelchair accessible.
Okay.
There's nothing out of the norm that even Carlos's office at FDOT would call customized. They're still going to be safe transit vehicles. They've been through the Altoona testing, collisions, fires, cool down tests. They've had all that. So it's nothing more than we would do, to where if we had bought the other vehicles that are offered through the state TRIPS contract, that would be a total customization. to where they take the gas engine and transmission out and put in all the electric stuff and the wiring and the batteries and
I
stuff
see.
like that.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be a total like, and the problem with that again is with customization, no two are alike because it's all custom, right? So, you buy 5 of them and you figure out a problem with one, doesn't mean it's going to fix the problem on the other 4 because they're all built differently. Okay, so, but that's why they don't like the customization. So,
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. All right, next report, Terry.
Can I ask a question about the software?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Lance, can you come back up?
You said software?
Oh, yes, he
Yeah,
said
I just had a
software.
question about the software. Is there like a rollout communication plan to let people know this is coming? Is it going to be an app, or do you have to do it on a computer, or?
So the answer to your questions are all yes. So seriously though, yes, we will have a rollout period. We will be working with our marketing firm to inform our patrons of the application being implemented. It will be an app that the customer will have access to, but we also understand that there are individuals that will still use a computer, so it has both opportunities available to it. And for once again, we understand that all customers are not going to utilize the technology, so we still have our call center. We expect that we will reduce the volume of calls and questions coming into the call center, but there will be an opportunity for individuals to utilize it whichever way suits them the best.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And so we'll be able to schedule our rides through that?
Yes, ma'am. So the client will be able to schedule their trip, cancel their trip. We're not actually potentially doing a lot of modifications initially in the first phase, but scheduling cancellations at least.
And then you said something about it'll notify us like when our bus is like 5 minutes out or something?
I won't say 5 minutes. We're thinking about 10 or 15 minutes.
Okay.
At least you still have the time frame to finally prepare and get out the door.
And it would send like a text message or something?
We're going to set it up for 3 different ways: a text, a phone call, or email. Thank you.
Perfect.
Yes. So we're trying to consider all of our clients and the methods that they use for accessing our service and being able to communicate with as much individuals as possible in the way that best suits them. All right. You're welcome.
All right, thank you. Community Transportation Coordination Report.
So the reports are in your packets for your prior review to the meeting. If there are any questions, of course, the first one talks about outreach that we've done throughout the last period from last meeting to now. Second one displays ridership information that we have completed in the last several months. And the third is the Volunteers in Motion report, which also does the same. Once again, if there are any questions, glad to answer.
You want to just give us the 30-second so that it's on the record, so that those that don't have packets?
Sure. Coordinator report.
Well, he told me I didn't have to talk today. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I'm just looking for the report real quick. Okay, we've been doing a lot of outreach these few months. Volunteers in Motion did the Boomer guide. She'll explain it to you when she comes up. We did BPS Destination Kindergarten. We did it at North and South. These are kindergartens going into grade school, and the reason why we went out is because the siblings that's in middle school and in high school that they could utilize the bus. We did Eastern Florida State College Disability Week. We did 3 campuses except Titusville. We have Rotary clubs coming up in the near future. You'll see it in the next report in the next meeting. Okay, and you have ridership has been going up drastically on paratransit. We're up to roughly about 7,400 trips a month, and yeah, it's been going up.
Wow.
If you have any questions,
No, I think that's
No?
great.
Yeah, ridership has been going up on fixed
It's
route.
because you're
and
doing such a
paratransit,
good
which is
job.
good.
Everybody wants to ride now.
Yes. Yeah.
We've been doing good.
I'm kind of new on the board, so I'm not up to speed with everything, so sorry if this is a redundant question, but the question I'm always wondering is I see how many rides, how many individual trips you guys do. But what I'm wondering is what is the actual ridership? Because I'm guessing a lot of those are repeat rides, like maybe somebody who uses it every week or maybe a couple times a week. So do you have a sense of how many people are actually accessing that,
Well, if you take, let's say,
or even an estimate?
if you take like 70, we do per leg, so it's one person, 2 trips.
Right.
So if you divide it into 2,
Okay.
that is your average
That's
per
getting
person.
close. That's getting closer.
Individuals. Correct.
Right, okay.
And we do dialysis, of course, 3 times a week. We do radiation 5 days a week.
Right.
And shopping, hairdresser, and all that stuff is included.
So out of 3,000 trips, because it's round trips, so 3,000 trips could represent 1,200 people.
Mhm. Pretty
Possibly.
much.
Okay.
And we also do the training centers, Brevard Treatment Center, Easter Seals, they go every day.
Right.
ECCI, Bridges, so that's 5 days a week,
Right.
every day.
Thank you.
And just to mention, I just read an infographic, I think you folks posted. It does have kind of a breakdown, I'm not speaking for you, I'm just saying you have one, that says, and I think it was half the people ride daily just to go to work.
Correct.
Right, but there's a whole bunch, it just breaks it down by ridership type, not necessarily in there, but it may not be in this agenda. but
Yes, it's on
posted
this,
somewhere.
it's on the sheet that we
It's
just.
on there,
Yeah.
and it shows
It looks like about
type
15%.
trip.
I think he's talking about also the information sheet that we just updated. And also, we started Seniors at Lunch again, which is great. If you don't know what Seniors at Lunch is when we pick the seniors up from their home. We just started it March 6th. We haven't transported them since the pandemic. Their last trips was in the beginning of March, and we just started it on March 6th, and we are thrilled to pick the seniors up, take them to the site for them for a meal, play bingo and all that stuff, and then bring them back home.
Where are you taking them?
We take them to different lunch sites. Palm Bay goes to Captain's House. And Captain's House, if you're not familiar with Captain's House, is by the water. There's another one on Grant Street, off of Lipscomb, in that area. The other one is Jolie, which is in Cocoa. And then West Cocoa, we take the community center in West Cocoa. We have Port St. John, which is at the community center. And then we do Titusville, which is on Dummit, which is, the church is so nice to give them the community room for their lunches.
Okay, that's very nice.
Yeah, I'm thrilled because when I started in 1999, that was the core. It was paratransit and seniors at lunch. So when it went away, it kind of hurt my feelings. But now I'm excited that we just redid it again, and they are so excited. And we actually taking seniors that when I seen the names, I'm like, oh my God, he's still with us. And I was so happy to call him and say, hey, your pickup time is, and he said, are you still there? I'm like, yeah, we're still. So yeah, we were excited, and I just love taking them out. There's something for them to do.
Well, that's so nice. So this is your Seniors at Lunch program, and any senior can call up in.
It's not through us. It's through, I call it Seniors at Lunch. It's through, what's their main name?
Aging Matters?
Aging Matters.
Okay.
It goes. It's through
Okay.
Aging Matters. They sign up through Aging Matters, and they certify them, and they send us their certification that they qualify for our system. And
Okay,
it's
so
free.
they have to.
They transport for free because Aging Matters takes care of the.
And then they're taken somewhere for lunch. Do they pay for their lunch in advance, or?
No.
No?
Everything is free.
Wow. Okay, this is a
through
great
Aging
program.
Matters. It's like,
Aging
have you heard about Meals on Wheels?
Right.
Oh, of course.
So it's similar to that, but instead of Meals on
Take
Wheels,
them.
they take them for them to get together and gather instead of just them taking a meal to their house and not talk to anybody.
Okay.
So it's exciting.
Well, thank you very much. That was a good report. Thank you.
And Lori's going to do the volunteers in motion. Excuse me.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. This quarter, we're happy to have 2 new volunteers. They are actually a daughter and father team, and they reside in Indy Atlantic. So that brings our active volunteers to 14. And right now, inactive volunteers, we have 3, and an inactive volunteer is going to be someone that might be on medical leave, or they're seasonal and they're not in the area. For the general information for our program, Volunteers in Motion was at the Senior Expo. It was on Valentine's Day, February 14th, and it was held at the zoo, Brevard Zoo. And, I mean, we definitely had the opportunity to talk to at least 100 people that came by our table. And it was pretty exciting. I hadn't gone to the zoo in a while, so it was really nice seeing all of the animals. It was a really great venue to have that Senior Expo there. Our accomplishments for the first quarter, clients, we've helped 389, trips 808, and volunteer hours 942. A lot of times when I do this, I always go back and look at what we did, the previous quarter. And what this is showing me is that our clients, as far as the trips, are pretty high. And what this means is our clients are asking us to do more than one stop. So they're asking us to go to the pharmacy or the bank, or some of our clients have requested 2 appointments in one day. So that's what I'm getting from what our, from what our accomplishments were for the first quarter. Any questions? All right.
Any
super.
questions from the board? All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Lori. Good report. Thank you. All right, that does it for reports. Terry, anything else?
No, ma'am.
All right, we'll move on to action items. Transportation Disadvantaged Service Plan update. Who is taking that? Okay, Ken.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Kenneth Harley. Each year, the Community Transportation Coordinator is required to update the Transportation Disadvantaged Service Plan. That's a requirement that's under Florida Administrative Code 41-2. It's also a deliverable under our planning grant with the Commission for Transportation Disadvantaged. This year, we're looking at making some minor modifications, but I think the 3 biggest changes that we're requesting this year is on page 72. Delete the statement that says all calls should be answered within 3 rings and should not be placed on hold longer than 2 minutes. We want to replace that with all calls should be answered as expeditiously as possible. The hold time should be minimized to eliminate excessive hold time where feasible. Also on page 2, we have to establish an annual goal of the number of clients, a percentage of clients that we want to transfer from paratransit to fixed route. Last year the goal was 1% of the clients. This year we want to change that goal to 0.5%. And the last item we updated is the rate model, the cost that is billed for the trips under the TD program. Last year it was $2.18 a mile for an ambulatory trip. This year it's $2.61. And last year for a wheelchair trip it was $3.74. And this year it was changed to $4.47. So those are the significant changes that are being requested in the update for this year.
I have a question. Any questions from the board regarding the update?
Hey, I have a question.
Yes, please, Chris.
So what kind of mechanisms will be in place? Because you're proposing changing from a specific target number within 2 rings to as expeditiously as possible. So what kind of things might be in place so that it doesn't turn into 15 rings and be on hold for 20 minutes or?
Well, this standard actually has been in existence since the TE program established, and that was back in the late 70s. So this new standard that we're looking to implement, calls will still be monitored, so there's still the capability of monitoring calls and seeing how well we're doing, and then adjustments can be made after that point. Also, with the new technology that's being introduced where clients can schedule their trips via their smartphones or through email, this is going to cut down considerably on the amount of calls that are actually coming in.
And will there be an opportunity, maybe at this meeting, to say, okay, last month, they were answered within 3 rings, or so that the board can keep track of how that is going?
I think either Carmen or Kerry will have to answer that one.
So, don't go, Kim, because you're still up. So if you'd like me to answer that now, what we can do is in our coordinator's report that you saw a moment ago, we can put that information in the report so the board members can also continue to monitor that. And if you see that there's a concern that we're not performing to a standard that the board has seen as a good standard, then we can see about adjusting. But that will be done a year from now when this service plan has to be updated again.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question on that. I'm just sorry.
Yes, Ms. Dixon.
What is your percent of compliance with the current wording as it is now? Like, I think the target I saw, and maybe that was the old service plan, it was 95% of the time. So what percentage of the time have you currently been performing within that range of 3 rings and no longer than 2 minutes on hold?
Do you know offhand? I do apologize. I haven't looked that up, and I don't know offhand. We can look into that for you.
Yeah, because it looks like what you're saying is that you want to go from having a clearly defined and measurable target to having a very subjective wording, because what is expeditiously, how do you measure that? What is excessive? What is feasible? How do you measure that? I have a concern about the lack of measurability with a rule like that.
Okay.
What do you think?
I understand your concern.
So then what prompted the change? Like, is this, how is, I guess my big question is, how is this going to improve services to the stakeholders? How is this change in policy going to improve things?
Well, to the clients, and as Ken just mentioned, it's a standard that has been in place. We actually, I would say, within transit services have done above and beyond, and we're looking to be in agreement with the standards that have been in place for other agencies, because really and truly it is difficult and at certain times of the day to respond to a phone call within 3 rings. And Ms. Cleveland probably could say, you know, certain times the whole time is excessively longer, but when you get to, it's like 95. Certain times of the day it's going to be congested and completely packed up, and then other times of the day you can go down there and do 90 miles an hour if not a single person next to you. So it's a bad comparison, but it's what we deal with the same way. There's times of congestion, and there's times that there is not a lot of calls coming in. So.
But Terry, my concern is if we're not measuring it, then we can't respond, and there's a problem. So for example, like if we were measuring it and we said, oh wow, we're falling way short of that target of 95%, then what that allows us to do is brainstorm out on some different ways of, dealing with what you're talking about. Is like maybe a lot of people tend to call at a certain time of day. So maybe they're going to hear a recorded message that says, you're contacting us during a high volume time of day. The wait time could be longer than usual. We suggest that you call back during these certain other hours. That's just an off-the-cuff, idea. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is that if we want to continue to improve our service, it seems like having those objective measures in place will get us, kind of closer to achieving that objective.
As mentioned, I understand your point completely. The gentleman next to you has a question. I'll respond to that last one this way. This is our presentation to the board. We're not the ones responsible for making a change. We're presenting it to the board to do exactly like you're doing, have a discussion if you have a concern or recommendation.
Right, so I guess I was just giving you a chance to say how this would be an improvement, how this new policy would be an improvement, that's all.
Well, of course, we're not, I can't project that answer yet, because one of the biggest things is, like we said, we're looking to implement new technology that could potentially eliminate a significant volume of our incoming phone calls. So we may see that happen regardless.
Right, it would still be good to be able to measure it.
I understand. Like I said,
If we could be at 100% for clients, that would be amazing.
it would be great. It would be great. So,
Thank you, Chair.
you're welcome. Madam Chair?
Yes, sir, Mr. Lorendi.
So, the question was, the number that I've called, and I have been on hold middle of the day, 15 minutes, probably peak time, I don't know. People who answer that phone, are they dedicated to your organization, to your organization only?
I'm not sure if I understood the question, but let me answer it this way. The individuals that answer the phone are Space Coast Area Transit employees. There are, within our department, our call center, our customer service group, they actually report directly, well, indirectly to Carmen Baez, so they are our employees. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, but all I'm saying to you is, what takes priority, who sets the priority? Is it a shared resource for all of staff, the number I call? So there's nothing that directs me to, well, other people. I'm trying to get to the point of span of control, and this, to me, I agree with Diane, it's a step backwards, going from quantitative to qualitative, but then listening to you say we're going to have this software that's going to probably offload some of the inbound calls, and do that way on the schedule, right? I'm just trying to understand is the reason why you're stuck because you can never meet that 2 rings because you don't have enough staff or technology. That's what it's good.
Okay, thanks. So if I understand once again correctly, we have actually 3 different incoming numbers. There's a number dedicated specifically to our demand response and our customer service group. If you're calling that number, typically you're calling to make a reservation or answer information about our fixed route services. What we've also done recently is any individual that presses the prompt for fixed route now goes to our front desk operator, who is a lot less strained on phone calls, so she can respond to those. And then the other calls are directed to our reservations group of 5 currently, 5 staff members currently. So one of the issues recently has been staffing. That is correct. And so we've actually just added 2 additional staff members within the last 2 months. So the whole time is once again being decreased. So I definitely do understand the subjective concern, but once again, as Ken mentioned, this is something that's been out there and once again, we have our DOT partners who also monitor, and you guys are our monitoring agency. We've got the TPO that takes a look at us annually. So we've got a lot of people that are looking at what we do, and if you find that there is I'll put it this way, a number that you would like to see, once again, this is the group to determine.
Okay, sorry. May I say one more thing?
Yes, Mr. Lorendi.
I would love to see how many calls are abandoned and at what time they're abandoned. People just didn't want to hang on any longer, right? I mean, that is the 1 minus answer. That's not what we're getting at the 2 rings, whatever. That's irrespective. If you have a weak point where you can't answer the calls within a reasonable amount of time, and I've waited on the phone for 20 minutes for Social Security Administration and others, we expect that, but no slight on the federal government. But at the same time, right, that's really, to understand how you're going to improve, you've got to measure it. As Diane said, if you don't measure it, how do you know you're doing relatively good or bad? That's all.
Thank you.
I can, as being someone who's used the system for years, when I first started using the system, and this had continued for years, is that they told us that we could only call in the morning, and that we had to call in at 8 a.m. or we would not get a ride. And so that was continued for a long time, and so that's when the highest call volume is. And you could wait on hold for 30 minutes or more. I have been on hold when I thought that was the case for 45 minutes to an hour trying to get a ride. But now I work full time, so obviously I don't do that. And then I also found out that you don't have to call in, at 8 a.m. So I try, if I can, to call in the afternoons, after 3 o'clock, if I can, but I have to, I work, so I have to do it when my schedule permits. But my general hold time is 15 to 20 minutes. And so I usually just put the phone down, go on and do what I'm doing. And, and I do it, and I only call in because I have to see, because I'm on this board, right? And so I have to see how it functions. And so I do suggest that all the board members actually call in and try to schedule a ride. Call at different times during the day. And just, obviously you're not going to schedule a ride, but call in and just see how long you're sitting on hold and how long it takes before someone answers the phone. And, try at 8 a.m., try at 12, try throughout the day. But hopefully, what was the other, I think you said something about, a point that I wanted to talk about, and now I forgot.
Well, how are they currently tracking that data? Because it doesn't seem like it shows up anywhere if the target has previously been 95%.
Oh, I remember what it was. Okay, so it was what you said about saying maybe have a message that says, this is the busy time, call back later, because a lot of the riders that I speak with, they still think they have to call in at 8 in the morning because they have not gotten the message that they don't actually have to do that. So maybe that's something to put on there, say, hey, this is our busiest time, you can call back after 3 or something, I don't know, something like that.
I'll look into that. We can look into that.
Can I
Yes,
say something?
Ms. Miriam, yes.
Yes. You had mentioned something to the effect of if we still have concerns, we can go back and visit it in a year, and to what the board feels is reasonable, a reasonable standard, but you've literally removed the standard. So what will we compare it against? And if you're not tracking that data now, how are we going to know whether there's, an improvement or whether it's worse in a year? I think if one of the biggest issues is the call times, and this is a performance measure that's currently in place. It's the easiest way to measure whether you're performing well or not in that area, and it's a big concern for people. Why are we completely removing that performance measure?
Okay. So I'll let Ken speak to the change, but I want to clarify one thing. It's not that we're not tracking. I didn't have an answer to Ms. Dixon's question here with me right now. So we definitely, of course, we've got it in place, so we want to know how we're doing, but I didn't have any reports to present on that. The second part is, as I mentioned, the update, the plan update is done annually. So if we were to determine something today, and as I mentioned a moment ago, we can, on our reports that we present at each meeting, we can present how we're doing for that specific item. Then the board, with the next update, can then determine, say, that we need to be more stringent, go back to something a little bit, or we could see that we're performing as where we're recommended to do within the measures that, within the goals that were presented.
But why would you remove it from the service plan?
So like I said, let Ken answer that part.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Actually, the 3 answering a call within 3 rings, that's virtually almost impossible, especially when a reservationist on the line assisting another customer and another call comes in. So that call's not going to be answered in 3 rings, and I don't think in most offices that phone calls are answered within 3 rings. So that was the reason in removing that part of the criteria out of there.
I agree. I mean, that's a little unreasonable, but why not have some standard written in there that we can, look at objectively?
We can go back and revisit it and bring this particular item back at the next meeting.
All right.
But we can address the other 2 portions of the TDSP update. That's regarding the rate increase, the modifications to the rate increase, as well as the, let's stop there for a moment. Yeah, changing the goal from 1% to 0.5% as the number percent of clients that are moved from paratransit to fixed route. So if we could have a motion to approve the modifications for establishing a goal of 0.5% for clients being removed from paratransit fixed route, and to update the modifications in regards to the mileage rates that are being charged for ambulatory and wheelchair from 218 to 261, from 374 to 447, and the other minor modifications in the TDSP.
Okay.
That would suffice for now.
Thank you, Ken. Before we do that, I want to make sure that we have all the questions from the board done, and I have a question as well. I just wanted to get my board's questions taken care of first, because I actually have more questions than just that. I agree with everything that was said. I've worked in call centers where we had to answer the phone within 3 rings, and you couldn't keep them on hold any longer than 2 minutes. It was very, very difficult. But we did it because my KPI, when I came for my review, depended on those phone calls being answered in time. So I would think that we should maybe remove that from here and maybe work on that a little bit further, maybe leave it the way it is and come up with something else and take that out of the request for the approval for this, but that's just my comment. The next one is, we talked about taking some of the people off of the paratransit and moving them to fixed route, because some people do not necessarily need paratransit and others may, and they're taking up the spot that the person who needs it may be taking. So I can certainly understand that you have to go through and qualify everyone that's on paratransit that they would be there. But to have a goal to take 50% off, I mean, a hard number off.
No.
It says
0.5.
Yeah, I didn't see the point. I need better glasses. I just saw the 50%, and I'm thinking, how are you going to do that?
No. No.
All right. Well, thank you very, very much for that clarification. That makes me feel much better. I was so worried about the other 50%. All right. So let's. Thank you. Well, that might be a whole lot easier. Change the number of routes from 20 to 24. Can you explain that a little bit better? Are you adding routes? Change the number of routes from 20 to 24 routes?
20,
That's
26.
to 20. Mine says 24.
Should be 24.
Mine says 24. Change number of routes from 20 to 24. We're adding?
Correcting. There are currently 24.
Oh, we're correcting, because it says change. So you mean correcting?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Because I guess you might have said add. All right, I'm good with that. And I like the changing it from ride with Jim to ride with Cherry. I guess that was certainly. Change 19 agencies to 15, operate 45 vans to 42. So we're losing 3 vans?
Yes.
They're just out of service, or the call for them is cut down, or you can handle them elsewhere? We're not losing people.
It's actually,
Can you come up to the microphone?
it was one agency that gave the vans back in, Melbourne Terrace. Melbourne Terrace had 3 vans in their fleet, but they returned them. They actually bought their own vans, and they didn't want the van pool vans anymore.
Okay.
So I was like, okay. So we wish them luck.
All right, exactly. All right, I understand that. Thank you very, very much for the explanation. So then the only issue that I have is the call thing. For the same reason that the others did. I'd kind of like to, unless we work out something different. Do you not, I know it's difficult to continue to update your systems all the time. I know it's very expensive. Do you not have a measure that automatically answers a phone and places a customer in a queue? Before a live person actually gets to it?
Yes.
So is that not answering the call within the 3 rings, and then they're held in a queue by a machine, not a person? This is for a person to answer the phone. A live person, you're talking about answering the phone within 3 rings and not having them on hold for any more than 2 minutes. Is that correct? Once you get to a person?
Yeah, when you call the ride line number, it's automatic. It is an answering machine that answers it and puts it on the queue. So they put them on the queue, and then the next available operator, when they hang up for making a reservation,
Right, I had the same
automatically
thing. I
goes
know
to
how
that
that
person.
works.
So
I
it
hated it,
just
but I know how it
bounces.
works.
Yeah.
All right, so then once they get to the person who's now helping them, that person then cannot keep them on hold more than 2 minutes. If they have to, because sometimes you can't answer the question, you have to find out something for them, so you have to place them on hold and then you come back to them. Is that when you're speaking of this?
No, it's the initial hold time.
It's the initial hold time. So they haven't even gotten to a live person yet. So they're electronically being answered within the 3 rings and then put on hold for the next available person.
Correct.
And that is what you're asking to change so that can be as soon as possible? So I know some people will call in and they're on hold in that queue for so long. I think you can only be on there an hour and then it hangs up on you automatically and you have to call back.
Yes, ma'am.
So then they have to get back into the queue again and they've already been there an hour.
Yes, and we have heard from clients that have expressed that. I'm sure it's few and far between. If not, it would be this room full, for sure, if we had many instances of these. However, when we have had that happen, it's mainly being because of having issues with the phone system. So it's not a regular event that happens. The issue is the initial hold time, as Ms. Cleveland mentioned a moment ago, when she first used to call in, having significant hold times because of call-in during the high volume call time. So we do understand that does happen, but the hour-long hold times, we know that does not happen continuously.
Okay.
But the question here today is the whole time from the time the person, so in essence, the 3 ring is a moot point because when the client calls in, the system automatically answers when they hit the particular prompt of what area they want to go to, and then it puts them in the queue at that point.
And that's where the 2 minutes comes in.
And that's where the whole time is, yes. So as the issue is, it may be not realistic.
Okay, so I'm trying to work out a compromise here, something so that we can get this all finished. Just a second, Mr. Laurenti. So that we can get this finished now rather than pull this out of here and you don't get anything at all.
So
Just a minute. We've got one person already wants to speak here.
If the board has a recommended hold time, we can start that discussion. Is that what you're
No,
moving
because
towards?
if they're already at if an hour does happen, occasionally, it does happen. I'm trying to avoid that completely, but things are going to happen. 2 minutes to be on hold before you even get into the queue I don't think that's unreasonable at all. That could be increased maybe to 5 if it is reality that it really is 5. But if a person's trying to help someone, you can't give them 5. It may take 7 or 10 before that person is adequately helped on the phone and you can get to the next person.
And we do experience that, and I'll speak for the reservations agents in this case, where we do have clients that this is their opportunity to have a conversation with someone. And so the reservations agents do their best. And I forget, someone in this group also mentioned it in a meeting a while ago, but they do their best where they're trying to have that balance. You're being assistive to the client, but you also have to understand that there's other clients behind that one waiting to get in and have that call answered and having a conversation about my granddaughter is not taking care of, my trip request. So we're trying to accommodate that balance by all means, but there are some cases and in some instances where we're having to cut off calls, understand that's the case. So a 5-minute hold time, if the group determines that will be a standard we would like to implement. Like you said, so we're not kicking this can down the road.
Well, that's exactly so. That's why I don't want to just give you a number out there just to give you a new number or to have something that's ambiguous like as soon as possible, because that's not good either.
I understand.
So you have QA, quality assurance, someone's monitoring the calls.
Yes, ma'am.
Correct. And then there's coaching done for maybe to help that operator get off the phone sooner and still be polite to the person calling in. I'm sure that happens. I know it happened with me. I used to be QA. I know how that happens. Is that an option at all? So it's to help a person get off the phone sooner, politely, to let the person go. I understand, ma'am or sir, but I've got to go. Something on to that effect.
Most definitely.
Coaching.
Yes.
Is it better we pull this item off of this and it's not included in this update when we make our motion, or do you want to?
Well, you have two more members.
I know, I do, and I'm getting to them. I'm asking you so that we have some kind of direction here we're heading toward. Mr. Lorendi's going to be next, and then Anna Mae. Do you want to speak? And then Anna Mae, and then Christopher. So we have three more that still want to chime in on this. Do you want to hear from them first?
Yes, please.
All right, Mr. Lorendi?
Yes, thank you. Just as a compromise, I think you had, the fixed part is, hey, that automated attendant gets you in the queue and eventually attends you to one of the 5 people. So that, I think, take that out of the equation here. What we're talking about is reasonable, is depending on how many people have called in, we don't know, that's a variable, which I don't think you can control, and then how busy the 5 people are. So I think somewhere, if you maybe worded it so once you're passed on to the queue where a live person will speak with you, doesn't have to be quantitative, it could be qualitative. Best effort or something like that, still should measure it, but I think if you wanted to get at this meeting passed, I think what you fleshed out here is the first part is fixed. We get that attendant, automated attendant, and it's going to put you in the routing system after some. So that's my offer to try to.
But you can't stay in that queue forever until the 1 hour limit comes up and hangs up on you.
That's a system on that, right? But how busy the people on the other end is a variable that I'm calling in. I don't know how busy they are.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Lorendi. Yes, Anna Mae?
I just wanted to say I've been on both sides of this phone calls, and I call Social Security as well. I also operated on the other side of it, taking calls for transportation. And I see things a little bit differently. I see the, as soon as possible, the highest standard you could ever reach is, so to measure something that is almost immeasurable, you have, things happen. Someone gets sick. Somebody can be on the phone and have a heart attack or fall. There's all kinds of things that happen. And sometimes I think some of it is rider education as well. And as a person that's lived a lifetime with a disability, as somebody that's lived a lifetime with a disability, if I have to be a partner, and the partnership of everybody, riders, end users, it's an education. Everybody has to work together. And when you're disabled, as I am, I have to plan ahead. I don't use transit, but I have to plan ahead no matter where I go. I have to leave an hour early for an appointment if I want to get a parking space. I have a lot of things to do. So I think I would like to see consideration done to everybody the goal being to work as a team effort to get the wait times down, and to how we can plan better on both sides of those phone calls.
Understand.
And that's my suggestion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Mr. Conkello?
And I would suggest that we do table this issue in order to get the data, so we can look at what is happening right now.
Is that your motion to pull this out and make the motion on the rest
Before you
of
make
it
a
too?
motion, I do have one response, if you don't mind. And something was just said a moment ago, made me think of it this way. As I mentioned, there are higher call volumes at certain times and lower call volumes at others. if it pleases the board, maybe we'll do a 5-minute hold time in off-peak and a 10-minute maximum hold time during peak.
That's a compromise. I don't see that there should be an issue with that. We should try that, but now, once we do this, we have it for a year. So those people out there, those callers are going, you were asking for a year. This will not be changed until the next year's update to see how this went, and you'll be measuring in the year.
I have a question.
Here's the reality, excuse me, here's the reality. We will be showing our performance measures, and the board will see how we're performing. To adjust it or address it, that's the harder part. Like you mentioned, quality assurance, the only other way is adding additional bodies, and that's the harder part. So really and truly, and I'm being transparent, we'll be showing how we perform more than anything else within that period. If we were to adjust it within the first 3 weeks, it doesn't mean because you put the number on the paper, it's going to happen in reality.
Oh, absolutely. I certainly agree with that. Ms. Tate, you had a comment?
Yeah, well, maybe more of like a question. So if we do make the change to non-peak 5-minute hold time and then high peak, like low peak and high peak 10-minute hold time, will you also add in a high call volume message? Because part of the issue is the frustration that the passenger feels when they're trying to make a reservation and their hold time goes beyond 5 minutes. So this way, they're not just getting off the phone and then calling back and still calling during a high peak time and still being on hold for a long time.
You definitely definitely echo a great point, and we will definitely look into changing our hold message to include that additional language, verbiage.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Can
Yes, Ms. Moore?
we define the peak and off-peak
I knew that was coming.
Because, I mean, who's to say it isn't all, high.
So we're going to move the peak period today, and it's going to be now the off-peak later on because all the calls are going to come in once we change that message, of course.
Yes.
So that's why I have a little bit of hesitancy to define a time period specifically, but what we'll be looking at is the call volume and determine that if okay with the board. Because call volume, as Ms. Cleveland mentioned, Monday morning 8 a.m. for anywhere is probably the highest call volume. Friday at 3 or 4 o'clock is very likely the lowest, but that might change. So I would like to be able to look at the call volume to answer that one.
Yeah, I think that's an adequate suggestion, and I was going to say that if we did that, perhaps similar to what they do with the moving people from the paratransit to the fixed route, we take a percentage every year. We try to increase on that. We try to improve those performance measures year after year, but within reason. I mean, we know we're not going to get everybody answered in 3 minutes.
Exactly, and just to add a point to that, we're asking to change the percentage of individuals that are being transferred to the fixed route because, as you mentioned, the individuals qualify for the service. The qualifications are typically disabled, elderly, or transportation disadvantaged, which is typically monetary. A lot of those individuals don't change from what they are. They don't get better and now are able to walk to the bus stop, and they're not getting any younger. So those are areas that the individual who's qualified is very likely going to continue to be qualified and highly unlikely to not be to not qualify for the service. So that's why we're asking to reduce that number, because once again, our clients are our clients, and they are typically our clients until they're no longer with us.
Yes, Ms. Dixon.
So Terry, what I'm wondering is, what is the process that you employ to transfer someone? Like, two things I noticed. One, isn't it on your application? Isn't there a question right on the application that asks, is the nature of their situation temporary? I think there is, I don't remember the exact wording. And so wouldn't you look at the people who, indicated that they're in a temporary situation? Those are the people that I would expect could be moved off of para onto fixed route. And then the next part of that would be, and so how do you prompt them to you send them a letter? Do you, follow up and say, hey, do you still need paratransit? Have you thought about moving to fixed route? Like,
So you are exactly right. We do have a way of asking the individual about using the service. However, reality is most of our clients are going to put no to that. I'm on this service forever. So what we do find is that there are some individuals that, and Carmen can speak better to this than I can, but we do have individuals that can use fixed route and use fixed route a couple of times a week, but use our demand response for specific trips, typically like to a doctor. And so, and those individuals, and the only other individuals that we've been able to move to the service have been our, and I don't want to call a particular name of our organization, but for our some of our mentally challenged users, we've been able to transfer them because they can actually realistically use fixed route. However, outside of that, we don't have many others that have said, I have a temporary disability and in 6 months I'll be good to go type thing. So.
Sure. So then how do you prompt the individual to make that?
So as I mentioned, Carmen's team will then reach out to that individual and discuss the possibility of using fixed route versus the demand response. But we aren't, and I want to make sure this is clear, we aren't in a position, and Carlos could definitely speak to this as well, we aren't in a position where we can force an individual to stop using, whether it be ADA or TD services. So like I mentioned, our mobility manager and her team reach out to the individuals that we think we can have move and then try to initiate that process.
Okay, and then finally, since you're asking to reduce that target number down to 0.5%, what has your typical percent been that you are able to move? Do you have that data?
This is a new rule that was just recently implemented. So we this last year gave that as a target with the expectation that we could, and found that that wasn't realistic. And now we're asking to reduce it to something that we could probably get to, and hopefully be able to sustain.
And I wonder about that too, because how do you know? Like, because I don't think they don't know who I am when I get on the 21. So they don't know that I mean, unless it's a driver that I know, but they don't have or report, oh, Jennifer just didn't take the paratransit, instead she took the 21. How do they know?
So how it actually happens is that with the transfer, you're no longer using the TD or ADA services, and you're using the fixed route. So we're not counting the individual when they go to the other services. We count that they're not using the TD service.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yes, Mr. Condell.
Excuse me.
Is there, after someone transitions to a fixed route, is there like a follow-up, like maybe 3 months later, how's it going, just to check on them, or once it's done, it's done?
There has not been.
All right. Any other, yes, Mr.
So I just wanted to know, I think what I heard is very good alternatives, the 5-10 minute peak, low peak, high peak, whatever. And then the deployment of this, maybe on demand, 3 methods, you use your computer, you use your mobile device, so that might take some of the demand off the callings. So I'm just thinking from a risk point of view, and you're right, it takes another year to change this plan. If there was a motion about 5 minutes/10 minutes, depending on the peak when you call in, I thought that would be a good compromise to get that resolved. And because otherwise, we're 3 months down the road, right, and we only have 9 months left. Just saying.
All right.
If it matters.
So we're going to, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve with the changes that we've just discussed regarding the peak times. That's going to be the only change, is that correct? I'm going to ask for a motion for that. We're changing the peak times, as you just said, the 10 and the 5 minutes to peak time?
Yes, please. But you said only change. You're meaning the only change to the proposal.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
No one's asked for anything else, and you answered all my questions for the things that I had, so that's the only. All right, we have a motion from Ms. Tate. May I have a second?
I second it.
Oh, sorry, I do apologize. So I want to back up on 2 things. The motion is being made by Ms. Tate? Okay. The matter has to be done by a roll call. A roll call.
A roll call vote.
Yes, ma'am.
So I need a motion and a second, which I have, and now we're going to do a roll call vote. Is that what you?
Okay.
Okay. All right, thank you. So I have a motion and I have a second, and we'll do a roll call vote. So all those in favor will say aye, and those opposed will say nay. Yvonne?
I can call your name.
Pardon me?
I can call your name.
Yes, that's a roll call vote, yes.
Okay, Andrea Young,
Aye.
Carlos Colon,
Aye.
Marisol Martinez, and she's not here. Jennifer Surratt,
Aye.
Dennis Vanderstal, Anna Mae Smith,
Aye.
Terry Tatey,
Aye.
Miriam Moore,
Aye.
Jamie Stringer,
Aye.
Carla Rodriguez not here. Not sure to say this, Eve Louise. Amber Star Bush is not here. Jen Frost is not here, and then Christopher.
Aye.
Is that everyone, Ms. Yvonne? All right, thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Well, I think that's the longest we've ever talked about anything since I've been on this board. Very good discussion. All right, we'll move on to member reports, and we're going to hear from Diane Dixon.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and greetings to my esteemed partners on the board and to our distinguished guests who are here with us this morning. First off, I'm very pleased to be able to share a little bit with the board. I'm very excited about having this position and having this opportunity. I am the co-founder of the Agency for Life Transformations, and we are an employment services provider here in Brevard County since 2018. And essentially, what we do is we provide training to youth and adults with disabilities that helps them to get into employment, and we provide support on the job, and we do everything we can to help them to establish meaningful lives of purpose here in the community. And so I don't want to spend a whole lot of time getting into the details of all that entails, more than to say that a big part of what we do is taking a holistic approach to assisting that individual, not just into employment, but into everything else that makes a full life for a human being. And so, as you can imagine, transportation is a really critical element. Being able to get out and meet the community is a very integral piece of being able to show up as a member of the community. And here in Brevard County, it's a huge struggle for individuals to be able to get where they need to go. And we talk in our meetings about what some of those challenges are, the size of our county, the nature of the 75-mile, one end to the other end. So there are a lot of really obvious challenges that are involved. And I wanted to speak a little bit to what I see as my role as an advocate on the board, and what I feel that advocacy at its best truly is. When I am speaking and I'm interacting with the board, I take my role as a representative very seriously. So what I seek to do is to speak on behalf of a very large constituency here in our county, and that's kind of daunting when you consider the census data, which suggests that there are about 85,000 people in Brevard County who identify as having disabilities. I don't think that I could adequately represent 85,000 people, but all of us working together, we can really do our best to act as a bridge between Space Coast Area Transit, Transportation Disadvantaged Services, and the large number of people who rely on us as a conduit to access the community. And so what I like to do is I like to be able to go out to my partner organizations and inform them about the good work that Space Coast Area Transit is doing, about our future plans and goals, and then also to hear from them regarding how things are working for them. Are they able to access? Are they able to get where they're going? So in the short time that I've served on the board, some of my observations are that we have a great deal of focus on measuring how well we are doing in serving our current ridership, and that's super important. There's no doubt about it. But beyond that, I have a concern for the individuals who are qualified for services who are not accessing our transportation. And I want to understand why that is. And I think that the more we can dig into what the barriers are that prevent people from being able to have good experiences with paratransit, the more we can work together to increase our capacity to provide these services. So as a newbie coming in, I look at Volunteers in Motion and I think, wow, that's fantastic. That's a partnership between the community, Space Coast Area Transit, and what they provide to the people that they serve, which is, if I understand correctly, it's going to be probably the 65 and older. They provide them transportation on a limited basis to certain places. If they had a job that they needed to go to Monday through Friday, Volunteers in Motion wouldn't be the answer to that. But I'm curious about how we could potentially expand something like Volunteers in Motion to provide more services to people with disabilities and appropriate services. And I also would like to have a chance to talk a little bit about the fact that we do have all different disabilities. It's not just one thing, which makes it very, very challenging to develop appropriate services when you consider we have people who have mobility, we have people who have blind and visually impaired, but then we have people who have intellectual disabilities, mental health challenges, and that's a whole different can of worms. So when you talk about calling in and scheduling a ride, well, I work with individuals who don't know how to tell time, right? And so then you say, well, this is going to be your pickup window, and they don't know how to tell time. So that's just one small example of how our services might work for even 80% of the disabled people. But how can we better serve the ones who we're not hearing from, the ones who don't attend meetings to have their voice heard? That's really where my heart and my advocacy is how do we speak up and how do we learn more? And so we have quarterly meetings, which is fantastic. I'm also interested in finding ways to be more supportive to the good work that's taking place here in between those meetings. So last meeting, we had a great presentation, and there were some surveys that were being done to get feedback from stakeholders. And I talked to Debbie Flynn a bit about that after the meeting, and I wanted to find ways that I could potentially help to gather more of this feedback so that we do get a fuller picture of how we're doing and why people aren't using us and what we might be able to do to change that. And I just share this as just a really small example, but I took copies of the survey and I don't remember which one because there were two different surveys. Excuse me if I don't have the exact title of that survey, but it was a stakeholder survey, and it was in a short answer format. It wasn't multiple choice. And I took it to an interagency event that was taking place, and which was maybe, say, 70 to 80 people in attendance. And I was able to get 20 feedbacks right there on the spot of people who cared enough to let us know what their situation was, to stand there and fill out the 10 questions in longhand and give those back to me. So that was kind of a proof of concept, and I just wanted to say that in the future, I hope that we can think more about how this board can be more active and more impactful in between our quarterly meetings. And this all goes towards the work that I do in helping folks to access employment, but I want them to be able to access a lot more than just employment. I want them to be able to get out and meet with their friends, make friends, go to church, do different things that all of us kind of, myself included, take for granted. It's my pleasure to be able to share with you guys this morning, and I have so much admiration and respect for each and every one of you and the good work that you guys do. I know you're up against a lot of challenges, but I hope that you will start more and more to look at the board as partners in helping to solve these problems. When we're asking for data, it's not because we're trying to catch you not falling down on the job. It's the opposite. We're trying to get down to how can this be improved? Do you need more money? Do you need more resources? Then let's get that. Let's do what we need to do to get the resources we need to fulfill the mission of the organization. And with that, I will conclude. And if anyone has any questions, you may or may not, but you can ask me questions.
You're right over there. Thank you.
Did somebody ask a question?
No, I said if anybody wants to ask a question, she's right over there.
That's right. You can come up to me after the meeting. I'm approachable.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Dixon. That was wonderful. It was good to get to know your background there. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to public comment. I have a card here from Margaret Campbell Rensel.
Hello. First, I'd like to thank Carmen for the help I've gotten from her from the last time I was here.
I'm speaking to the mic.
Sorry. The Rider's Guide for the paratransit service is very, no, I'm trying to word it right, is not what we really have. I mean, it tells us to call 2 p.m. the day before you need a trip, and that you can schedule 7 days in advance, and that is not what you can do. Kind of going on what people said before, if you don't call at 8 a.m., there's a good chance you're not going to get your trip, especially if it's in the morning. I've called at 8 a.m. sometimes, and the trip is not available for that trip in 7 days, since you have to call 7 days ahead and only can make one trip that day. It makes it very difficult for anybody. If you go to the doctor and have to go to a pharmacy, you can't go for a week because you can't schedule. If you don't know you're getting a prescription that day, and even if you do, you can't go to the doctor in the pharmacy. It's not allowed.
So that's against, you're not supposed to be getting refused service. So you're saying that they're refusing you a ride?
They'll say they don't have, it's not available.
Okay.
The time's not available.
The time's not available.
Yep, for the trip you need. Okay, yeah, the time is not available for the trip the trip that I need. I've had this happen several times, and they just say it's not available. Sometimes they'll say they'll check with a supervisor and see if they can do something and call me back, but there's nothing that seems to be in the process. Part of it may be maybe they need just to adjust the Rider's Guide. If the forum's going to be, you have to call 7 days in advance, and you can only schedule one trip that day. Or if they're building towards, which would be really nice, going to what the Rider's Guide says and being able to do it. It's very difficult to plan everything 7 days in advance and only being able to do one thing that day.
No, they're supposed to be scheduling you according to the Rider's Guide.
I know, the Rider's Guide says a lot, but it's not.
Yeah, that's federal law and state law, so they're supposed to be scheduling you within that. So maybe somebody can tell us why that's not happening?
Okay, this is public comment. This is public comment, so it's, just let Ms. Campbell get her.
Okay. But that's mainly it. It's just either following the Rider's Guide, or do we update the Rider's Guide, or adjust it, whatever. It's just very difficult to plan your day, your one day, one thing, 7 days in advance. I probably don't know anybody here, or have talked to anybody that knows everything they need to do 7 days in advance and only one thing that day. It's just not realistic for people that don't have another means of transportation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ramsell. All right, move on. Any rebuttal comments, or we're just going to come back to that maybe next? Terry, did you want to say something? All right, thank you.
Once again, I want to make sure things are clear, and I also want to ensure that the board understands that I'm not being argumentative either. The Rider's Guide is put out for individuals to understand the services that we provide. One of the things that has been a constant thing I hear is the 7-day. I always equate it to, if you want to travel and you want to fly somewhere and you wait till the day before you need to go to where you need to go to and you try to book a flight and there's no seat available to you, there is no seat available to you. We give you up to 7 days in advance so you can call in 7 days in advance because, as mentioned, we fill up. So if you call the day before or 2 days before, then it is understandable that that trip time is not available to you to book. So there's typically, and I'm not on the phone, but there's typically an alternative that is given. So you have, I want to get there for 9 a.m. Well, we can't get you there for 9 a.m. We'll get you there for 8:30. Typically, our reservationists, and Carmen, help me out if I'm wrong, typically our reservationists will give you a time earlier. We understand that your appointment is at a certain time, so we're not going to tell you go for 9:30. We'll try to get you there earlier. So, and that's the understanding. And of course, with most doctors' offices, people want to book earlier in the day, and that's what they do. And the times are not available for the client. We're not refusing the trip. We can't give you the time that you want to get there is the issue. So the Rider's Guide says call up to 7 days in advance, which you can. If you call anything between 2 days and 7 days in advance, it's still acceptable, but you may not be able to get there at the time you want to. It's just... And I had a conversation with Ms. Anna May at her first meeting, and she said it again today. The client also has to know what they need to do and be responsible to book the trip within a time frame. I understand what the young lady just said. You may not know that far in advance, and when you do know, sometimes we just won't be able to accommodate, and that's all it comes down to. And as far as this booking the second trip, if you go to the doctor and then they say, oh, well, you need to go have a prescription filled, once again, our services aren't day of. We can't schedule day of. So if you go to the doctor today and they say you need to go to get a prescription filled, then you call in to schedule the next available date to go get your prescription. It may not be until a couple days from now, potentially. So, and I just wanted to respond. So everyone in the room is understanding the service we operate, also the limitations that we operate under. And the only thing to do is have Carlos come up and give us some more money for some more vehicles and some more operators and some more salaries.
Carlos,
We
can
know
you do
that's
that?
not an easy
Can you
thing.
handle that, Carlos?
It's not an easy thing, he says. So it's not an easy thing.
So actually, tomorrow, as a matter of fact, we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, well, you can see where it comes from. Thank you, Terry. There's a tremendous need for the service that you provide, and I think we all understand that there's only so much to go around, and there's certainly more demands than there is supply.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
So thank you for doing the good job that you do. Carmen, as well.
I'd like to add something, if I may.
Yes, Ms. Smith?
What I'd like to suggest, if it's possible, talking about money, but I would like to see some sort of education. My experience has basically, I've learned that sometimes people over 60, when they become disabled, it's a whole new world. And coping with it later in life is difficult. Other folks that have been disabled since childhood seem to have a little more time on the clock as far as learning how to cope with the world. I'd like to see some of the literature with the Writer's Guide is to help the consumer and ask them the question, how can you help us accommodate your need for transportation better? And I would like to see some tips of people with disability. Have a plan A, have a plan B, have an alternative, have a backup plan. If you can't make it Tuesday, can you make it Wednesday? If not 9 o'clock, can you do it 10 o'clock? Not only that, fighting your disability is a tough place to be. And you don't have to fight it, you got to work with it. And it takes the pressure off the individual themselves, because they understand the other side of the coin, that there's only so many hours in the day, there's only so many trips that can be made, there's only so many staff, and there's also stuff and life happens. So if you plan for the unexpected or expect the unexpected and have an alternative plan, if I can't make the doctor at this time, can I go an hour early? Can I do this? Can I do that? What can I do to make my life easier? And that's the person's responsibility. But believe me, life gets a lot easier when you're not looking for somebody else to solve every problem and do everything right when you want it, or when you feel you need it. Because I've got a lot of places I want to be at a certain time, and a lot of things I want to do, and guess what? The world does not cooperate a lot of the time.
I agree. Thank you very much, Ms. Smith. Thank you for your comments. Any other comments from the board? Yes, Ms. Dixon.
I just wanted to find out from Carrie, on the performance report card where it says percent trips denied, what would you consider a denied trip? Because it looks like you essentially don't deny trips according to this report card.
Exactly. We don't deny trips. A denied trip is when we say we will not accommodate it with any sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like I mentioned, changing time. So where we just say we won't take you where we need to go.
Right, but if the person is asking for a trip that you're not able to accommodate, then that doesn't get captured in
Right,
that.
because you're giving us, we typically will give an alternative.
Right, so then there's no, I guess what I'm trying to say is that if this is a common problem that people are having, like what this community member just shared with us, then it seems like it would behoove us to have a way of capturing that data so that we know, is this something that a lot of people are experiencing? Because then, I appreciate what Anna Mae shared, but at the same time, if we can capture what the unmet needs are, I know we have limited resources, but if there's a potential to increase those resources to solve problems, then that's exactly why one of the reasons why we keep data, right? So is there a way to capture those kinds, because that is a denied trip. I mean, objectively speaking, if a person wants something, we're not talking about the reason. We're just talking about were they able to get the trip scheduled? So you're saying, and that was a great analogy about the air travel, great analogy. Yeah, now you're asking us to do something in a day or 2 days. You have a better chance if you call us a week or more in advance, right? But is there a way that we can capture how often that's happening? Because maybe we do need to work on increasing the number of drivers and vans and such like that.
But I don't know if there's a way to capture it, because the reservation agent is having a conversation, and if the client then says, okay, I'll take that, but if the client says, no, that's not going to work for me, we might be able to look at that. The last part is a person may say, okay, well, never mind, just basically because they don't want to accept the other time. So we are only required to report denials. We're not trying to shove it under the rug or anything like that. We do everything we can to accommodate the request, and then, like I said, there's at times where there is an alternative given, the client will accept it.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Lorendi.
Just a quick question, because I know where we're heading with this. One last question.
Yes, sir.
This application you talked about earlier, it's going to be available on my computer or on my phone. Will that have visibility for the person making the schedule as to what's available, not available? Visibility into, hey, I want to make a Wednesday, 9 o'clock pickup. Will there be a graphic of?
Oh, I understand. Yeah, but
green is for the time 9 to 10. Here you can make an appointment. Just asking. I don't need a.
Good question.
Yeah. Because that would help some for the people who will be using the app.
And to clarify, so when a person goes online with the new system and wants to book a trip, it will show them, it will, I don't know if it's going to show blocks available to them, but it will say if it's allowable or not. What will happen is the individual will put in the time that they are requesting, and then likely the system will do the algorithm and go through and determine if it's one that it can accommodate.
Based on manual input from your operators and the software.
The software to determine, the same way the operator does now, if there's a block of 50, he has the block of 50 being filled. You're welcome.
All right, thank you. All right, no more comments from the board. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
May I give an update
Yes,
for
please,
the
Debbie.
projects that I have presented
I'm sorry,
on last
don't-
time?
I didn't have
I'm
you
sorry,
on
I
the
forgot
agenda.
to ask during
Yes,
members'
please.
report.
Yes.
Again, I'm Debbie Flynn, Space Coast TPO Transportation Planner. I'm working on the transit development plan with Space Coast Area Transit. And the survey results are on our website in an infographic, so you can check that out. And any reports that I was giving regarding the stakeholder interview, that will be in the appendix of the transit development plan when it's complete. The plan is not complete yet, but when it's complete, it will be there for everyone to view. And I just wanted to give another update. Space Coast TPO is hosting workshops in the next couple of months for the public to give input on our long-range transportation plan and our transit development plan. These workshops are on our website and our social media outlets on Facebook, and you could register to go to these events so we know how many people will be attending. The first one is in May 22nd, and that's in Satellite Beach. The second one is May 30th, and that's in Palm Bay. The next one is June 4th, and that's in Titusville. And the locations are on our website. I just didn't want to go through all the locations at this time. And June 12th is our last one, and that will be at the Center for Collaboration in Rockledge. And that will also be our annual workshop that the TPO puts on as well. And you're more than welcome to come and give your advice and what you would like to be changed in our long-range transportation plan and our transit development plan. And I thank you for your time.
Excellent update. Thank you very much, Ms. Debbie. All right, anyone else take a motion to adjourn?
Madam Chair, before you do.
Yes?
I'm sorry, James, did you have an item?
No.
If there are any volunteers to do a presentation similar to Ms. Dixon's today, like I said, just for the other agencies in the room to understand what your agency does and how you guys can work together and collaborate. If there are any two individuals that would like to present at the next meeting, please feel free to reach out to Ms. Yvonne Miles, who sends the agenda out to you.
All right, thank you.
Let's see one to volunteer now.
Yes, anyone who wants to give a report on their particular who they represent, please. That would be very nice. We'd all like to know what's behind. All right, a motion to adjourn. Was that your point, Mr. Stringer?
I adjourned the meeting.
Oh, all right, motion and second. When second, get up and go home.
Second by.
Second.
Thank you.
Ms. Tate.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. All right.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.